I bring up.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, wonderful. We've got our screen sharing. Welcome to the Business Recovery Center's session. We're going to talk today with Keith Sconiers and Imran Haider. They are from PaySuite. We are so excited to have them. They're going to talk about different ways you can grow your wealth, and not grow just your wealth, but your business, and be very uh, forward thinking in that, and different options that you have, especially through this pandemic. So we're so excited to have you. Please let us know if you have questions. There is a Q&A spot on there that you can just write in your questions, and we will try and get to those as we work through this. But gentlemen, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us here, Shatrine. Imran and I are very excited to be here, just to share our story and some key areas that will help business owners drive revenue in the new economy. So my name is Keith Sconiers. I'm the founder and president of PaySuite. We opened our doors 5 years ago, and it'll be 5 years in March of 2022 when we opened our doors. And really, just a short introduction in terms of how I got involved in the industry is I was working in the financial planning industry, and I was in the process of shifting to a new firm. And then a friend of mine called me from one of the largest payment processors in the United States to help with small business owners when it comes to the credit card processing and um, you know software point of sale side of things. And what I found in the industry was that business owners were overwhelmed, confused, frustrated, upset, just angry about the experiences that they were having when it came to working with merchant processing companies. And so I worked at that company for 2.5 years, and then later started PaySuite to really sit on the same side of the table as the business owner to help them sort through all of the solutions that are out there on the market, especially during a pandemic, to figure out which solutions are right for their model, right for their, who they are as an entrepreneur, and also their service offerings. And so that's how I got into the industry and had an opportunity to partner with Imran, obviously, as well along the way as we came across each other. And Imran, you can jump in and share a little bit about your experience in working in small business in the brewery space and what
Yeah,
it's been like up
for
until this
me,
point.
yeah, I knew Keith from college, and we ran into each other like 4 or 5 years ago and at the time I was running 3 brew pubs locally here in Tualatin in the Portland area, and anyway, we connected, reconnected, I should say, then ended up our business at that time, food and beverage business, ended up switching to PaySuite for our payments. And, it was one of the best decisions I made because I didn't know much about the payment process until I got into the food and beverage business. And then, yeah, it was awesome to be involved and partnered with a company that's local, that actually knows who you are, wants to learn about you and your business. And it just makes a lot of difference because there's a lot of places that are going to call you and try to sell you a product without knowing really what you do. And it's a game changer to have somebody who's like, okay, what do you need, and what are the things that you want to accomplish with your customer base and your revenues. And that's where Keith just helped a lot in those aspects. And then, yeah, I think 98% of us who run businesses don't really understand on the back end and the backside of credit card processing, what's really going on with money and funds and transfers, and how things can sneak into your statements that shouldn't be there. So those are all just really good educational type of experiences that I had with Keith. And then, yeah, and then after the COVID shutdown happened in 2020, I just, if you can't beat them, join them. So I decided to join Keith at that time, throughout that process. So yeah, so that's how I'm here. And yeah, we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So the agenda for today is we'll cover a little bit of the questions that we asked in the survey. We'll talk about the silver lining of what happens during a pandemic and recessions. We'll share some successful business pivots, so some companies that have done really well throughout the pandemic and have continued to do well beyond it. And then we'll share the 4 keys to driving revenue and how PaySuite can help small businesses as well. So the BRC questions that got sent out on the survey was, has the pandemic impacted how you accept payments? Which we're seeing a lot of that on our side in terms of how companies are adopting new technologies and changing how they accept payments. Have your customers requested contactless ways of paying you? Customers, and you'll see in some of the data that we gathered, customers are expecting a different experience now. And the reason for that is the large companies who have lots of capital that perhaps weren't impacted by the pandemic, like the Walmarts and the Amazons and the Targets of the world, have the capital to reinvest in the technology and the digital transformation, and it's driving the behaviors of the consumer. So we wanted to ask, have your customers ask you if you're planning on offering other contactless payment methods? Have you invested in tools to allow online payments on your website? Obviously, we have customers who are in person, but also are virtual companies. So we've seen a significant increase in the uptick in online payments. In fact, a lot of the experts are saying that we are actually 6 years ahead of schedule as it relates to the online shopping trends that were happening prior to the pandemic. So if you're feeling 6 years older, some days I do, as a result of the pandemic, we've gone through a significant amount of change. I think I've lost more hairs rapidly throughout the pandemic. But have your fees to accept credit cards gone up during the pandemic? This has been another trend that we've noticed. Even though debit cards are on the increase because millennials actually prefer to use debit cards, debit card use is skyrocketing, but so is credit card fees, even though debit cards are a fraction of the cost of credit cards. So even though the trend for debit cards is going up, that trend should cause costs to go down, but we're not seeing that trend. We're seeing that credit card processing companies are actually charging even more. We've seen companies go from paying 2.5% for fees before the pandemic to up to 4% and 5% after the pandemic. And there's no legitimate reason for it. What business tools do you need right now that would help you exponentially grow your business? Obviously, the BRC offers a tremendous amount of education and resources to help you, not in terms of just what we provide, but the holistic view of helping you grow your business. And so we wanted to ask those questions because it's important, not only in terms of what we covered today, but in terms of the entire experience that you have during this pandemic and after, making sure that you can exponentially grow your business. And then we also wanted to know what tools have been most helpful for you when it comes to collecting money during the pandemic. We want to know that feedback so we can share that as a data point with other companies, or as a successful example that other companies can use as well. Some of the data that we gathered from Visa's Back to Business study is that 65% of consumers say that post-vaccine, they would prefer to use contactless payments as much as or even more than they are currently. So consumers don't want to go back to the old way of doing business. Shatrine, Imran, have you adopted I've been using Apple Pay on my phone, like on my watch, as much as possible. Have you also noticed that in terms of how you are, shopping with your, restaurants and retail stores?
Absolutely. It has been pretty much a game changer, and also along the lines, like, as we work, if you have a small business and, like, let's say you're working out of your home, people are using Venmo, Apple Pay to transfer money. It has been I've seen a huge increase in, like, markets, outdoor markets. When they accept payments, they accept them that way. And it's so phenomenal to just be able to either scan a QR code or be like, hey, what's your Apple Pay, and send it on over. Or even, like, if we go even beyond just the business tools, you think about if you purchase concert tickets now, you can have them on a wallet on your phone. Like, it's how everybody's starting to think and adapt. And I really feel like the businesses are just right on top of it with these options. At least that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Imran?
don't have a fancy watch like you do that does payments, Keith, but I mean, I'm in the camp, like, this is my thing too. I really like the idea of ordering my dinner or my coffee and having already finished the transaction. I just pick it up and leave.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to go back to, like, I have to go inside, pull out my card out of my wallet and tap it or swipe it. And half the time I have my 2-year-old son with me. And it's just, that's too much work. I have to do this stuff on my phone to be more efficient. So
Right. I'm noticing that too. And I agree. I think that because of the pandemic, we're less patient, not less patient, but we just, for health reasons, we don't want to get exposed unnecessarily. And, standing in a line for, 30 minutes waiting on food or waiting just to order, especially as it starts to rain. We've had torrential rain here in Oregon for the past few days. It's like, it's not as, it's just not as convenient. So being able to have a contactless way of payment or a order ahead, order online, is something that Visa is backing up with their data. They're also noticing that 69% of small businesses have encountered customer concerns about potential for fraud over the use of technology. So this is where I think that it's important to, as you're adopting these new technologies, to make sure that you're doing training with your staff and explaining the security of it, so that they can communicate that with customers, because customers are also, they don't want their information out there in terms of their personal identifiable information. They don't want their credit card numbers to get breached. So making sure that you have secure payment technology in place, but also a process for educating customers about what you're doing and communicating that, is something that is important. 47% of SMBs have invested in security and fraud prevention technology, because fraud has actually increased, especially for online payments, because it's more of a, like a, an online transaction when people are con following through on purchasing from a restaurant or a retail store. They're actually seeing more fraud. There's been more fraud from overseas and companies that are trying to hack into websites. So making sure that you have a professional or someone of that nature who can help you make sure that your website is secure. 36% of SMBs are offering installments as a payment offering. And that's like Klarna or some other solutions where you can actually log in on a website now and pick what you want to purchase and then pay for it in an installment, whether you pay in full or you pay over the course of 36 months. I haven't personally done that in terms of how I shop, but we have enabled it for the solutions that we offer in terms of point of sale. Shatrine?
I was just going to say, it reminds me almost like the the layaway plans
Uh-huh.
back in the day.
Yeah.
My grandma would tell me about that. It was for the things.
Yeah.
So is this basically, this is your online version of a layaway plan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
but you don't, you just plan ahead. So you make those payments and then after it's paid off, you get the item, correct?
No, actually, you get the
Oh,
item now,
oh,
but
okay.
you pay for later. So it's buy now, pay
Okay.
later.
Okay.
And
Huh.
what's cool about this new technology is that business owners can implement this technology and make the sale, for example, and the consumer gets the product right away, and the business owner doesn't carry the liability on it. So if the customer decides that they don't want to pay, it doesn't have any bearing on the business that's offering that as a service.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Are these some of the tools that PaySuite has or connections to? So if folks have, this is like something that's really singing to them and something they want to
Yep.
bring into their business, they could ask you about? Oh,
Yep.
fabulous. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And we can consult on, not only do we offer it, but we can also consult on like which type of offering is best for what type of business. Because one provider that does it may not work with specific types of businesses. And so being able to help them figure out which one's the best fit, we can help with that. And 85% of consumers expect digital options when they shop in person. So they expect you to have Apple Pay, Google Pay, or whatever wallet technology. They expect to have some kind of installment program, and if you don't have it, it's not necessarily bad, but we tend to shop where it's convenient. I, for example, have been using Chevron's app, and everyone knows that Chevron's gas is the most expensive. But I can pull up the app and pull right into the gas station, pick the pump, and pay without not having to pass my card to someone. And so it's a convenience thing that to me is worth it.
That's fantastic. I know I had never seen that before. I'm going to have to look into that.
Yeah.
There is a note from Jonathan here. He said, can you give an example of purchase using an installment? So
like a television. So instead of paying for the television outright, you can essentially just log in onto the website, pick the buy now, pay later option, and then it'll give you an option to whether you can pay it off in 4 installments, or where it'll basically hit your debit card every 2 weeks, right? And so it's an installment, but the TV gets shipped right away.
Okay. And then as for their business model, then does the full funding, because you want to get the product sold, do you get covered then? Do you get paid and then another sub person comes in and collects the fee, or how does that process work? Sorry, is that muddled?
Yeah, so the business gets the money right away.
Okay.
As if they would have been paying. Just the business doesn't know like it's the same as if they paid with a credit card, or if they paid with this buy now, pay later option.
Okay, so it's a separate entity that's taking care of the payment. Oh, that's okay. That's that's very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Absolutely. Anything you want to add on that, Imran?
Oh, I think that's a great example of that. It's I think for people on the back end, I think you did a good job explaining what's happening with the credit card gods and how, or the payment gods rather, and how money is going into the business account to afford selling that TV and not compromising the business that sold the product if somebody's made 2 installments and decides not to make the other 2.
Yeah. Seems like my screen here. Here we go. So here's the silver lining. So we're in the middle of a pandemic. I think we're in the middle. Hopefully we're not in the middle. Hopefully we're at the end of it. But the silver lining is that most of the really successful companies, a lot of them started during a pandemic of some sort. And Instagram is an example. Square, which is a large payments provider, was started during the 08 crisis. Microsoft was started during a pandemic, not a pandemic, but a depression, or during economic instability. Uber, WhatsApp, Airbnb, Disney, and so was HP. So if you're on the call and you're thinking about your business, it's very easy to, I would say, feel like, maybe your business may not make it through this period of time, or maybe business isn't as well as it used to be. There are plenty of examples of companies who have had to reinvent and create new products, new services, and have taken off, and business is better than it was before the pandemic. And some of those examples are, here's an example of Lovely Leaps. Lovely Leaps is a dance studio down in San Diego. And prior to the pandemic, everything that she did was in person. And so she relied on a physical location to teach dance. And during the pandemic, the building that she was using completely shut down, so she couldn't use it anymore. And so what she immediately did is she started networking and started teaching a mommy and me virtual class for young children. She did it for free initially, and then she realized she needed to make money, so she started a paid group for 6 to 10-year-olds. And as a result of that, she then launched an online paid class for that group. and added 2,000 paying customers, and it's $20 a month. But I don't know if everyone's paying $20 a month, but 2,000 customers is allowed to be $40,000 a month in revenue, and being able to offer that as a service instead of it being a physical location, being able to offer it digitally. And if you check out our website and see some of the things she's done, it's been incredible. But that's an example of someone who has taken a business that really requires like an online or an in-person experience and taking it online, especially for parents who needed a way to like give their kids something good to do, but not just sitting them in front of Netflix. Peloton is another example. I think Imran's a Peloton user. So Peloton's another thing, right? With gyms and things like that being either unsafe or closed, being able to have an experience that still works. And plenty of businesses have that opportunity to add that type of experience. Go ahead, Shatrine.
Well, I was just thinking, I mean, this is a phenomenal response to how she could look at her business, knew what her goals were, and figured out how to take it virtually. I would love to speak to the fact that some folks don't have an idea of how to take those steps. And that, they could have the idea, or somebody mentions, hey, you could do this virtually, or even, you could go e-commerce and put all your stuff online to sell, but they truly don't know the steps to take to get there, and have that question of, can I do it? And I see things like this, and my answer is always, yes, you absolutely can. Because there are people out here like PaySuite, be it our chamber, the Business Recovery Center, that will help. It is not a dead end. It is not something to be discouraged about, because no matter how long you've owned it, how traversed you are in doing computer stuff, we can always give people support. And I think that's what I love about PaySuite. Has so many options that'll cover your business needs, that it isn't just a one-stop shop that fits only for one type of client. We've talked many times, you guys are like, hey, it's a personal fit for each different business. And that's where, when we hear stories like this, I just want to encourage people. They did this, you can too. If you're worried, don't be worried that this isn't something you could qualify for or do it or have enough, because there is absolutely support out there, and there's creative ways of thinking to get your income back during this crazy time. So sorry, I just wanted to speak to that point of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the key part to kind of that pivot is to like network and get feedback from customers on like what's working well. Typically your customers that love your business and love to patronize your offering, they will make suggestions and ask questions. I think it comes down to being aware about like what your capabilities are, or what you're willing to try, or actually just going a little deeper on when they ask those questions about, hey, are you offering this online, or are you doing anything for virtual, digging in a little deeper and asking like, oh, what do you mean? Like, what would you like to experience? And then maybe asking some other customers and getting feedback using surveys. Imran, is there anything that you would add to that in terms of how somebody could approach adding another revenue stream or shifting their business model?
I would just add, pre-pandemic, even when we were really busy at our pubs, it would have been fantastic to have a way for our to-go orders on any night of the week or busy nights, just to be able to pay and pick up, or deliver curbside. I mean, just having the ability to get people in and out faster, or the person that wants to come in and buy a 6-pack of bottles just for their, take home, and there's a way to expedite that. I think it's going to benefit everybody. So yeah, the ability to think outside of the conventional box, even with restaurants, is, and most people, I don't know about our attendees, but most people have their credit card information on their phone. I do. So when I go to any website, it gives me an option for my credit card, and it just says pay with this, and it's a one button.
Mhm.
So that would be my angle from like, this doesn't just have to apply to like doing a virtual dance class or something like that. It could be any number of different industries.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Here's another one, the cookie cups. So Minnesota-based bakery, they were forced to close their doors, and what they did instead is they shifted to Grubhub and DoorDash in order to keep the business afloat. And then what they did is they launched a baking kit where people can order a baking kit online from their website, have it delivered, and then have that experience at home where they could still get the quality, experience with the products that they make, but have it be at home. We've also seen other restaurants that we work with actually have these family meals that they've been able to sell, $80 to $100 meal kits for the family to be able to go home and prep it and buy it from the restaurant. It's prepackaged and then go home and put it in the oven and put it together, assemble it, things of that nature. And this is another example of a business that relied on people to come into their brick and mortar in order to earn revenue, and they turned it into something that was on demand where a customer could buy from their website, have it delivered, and assemble it at home. It's kind of like the what's the place where people buy all their furniture now? Like
Oh, like Wayfair or one of those places?
no, the really cheap one.
Oh goodness, IKEA.
IKEA, yeah, it's like IKEA for cookies.
I love it. That's
Yeah.
amazing. One of our local businesses here, Bugatti's Restaurante, they actually
Uh-huh.
did the family meal kits, and it
Did
was
they?
so brilliant. Yeah,
Yeah.
they had it throughout the week, Monday through Friday, and you could choose how many people were eating. So 4, 8, 12, and you
Mhm.
could do a full meal plan. And I think it's just brilliant. And it's again thinking outside the box, and then that on demand, making it work. They also had the tools to
Mhm.
make it work, and I think it's so great.
Yeah. And I think the advantage to doing something like this, even if your business is going well in person, is that now that people are, like we mentioned earlier, people, it's 6 years in advance in terms of the e-commerce experience. Everyone has had to buy something online. They've had to figure it out. They've had to learn. Now you have a national or potentially a global market that you can serve through your business and use that additional revenue to create a better experience in person, and vice versa, right? And so I really love the they call it omni channel, where you have your in-person channel, but you have your online channel as well. The last one that I wanted to cover is another business that really relied on conferences and fundraising galas and award shows and things of that nature. So it's Pro Shows Auto Visuals. They're based in Canada. They have 26,000 square feet of warehouse space where they were basically, they had all the things that, like the stages and the equipment and things like that people would use when they would go to set up a conference. So because no one was having in-person conferences, what they did is they started converting their physical space into studios because they found that there was still a need for high quality production, but it wasn't going to be at a conference. So what they did is they started converting their warehouse space to studios where people could come in and record quality material and rent that space out to them so that they were able to keep revenue coming in. And as a result, they were to keep all of their staff. Instead of laying everyone off, they were able to keep everybody and continue to just keep their business alive during the pandemic. And now that, we're coming back and they're actually having in-person conferences again, they're actually going to keep some of those studios, even though they won't use their entire facility for that anymore. They're still going to keep it because they found value, and it's an additional revenue stream now that they didn't have before the pandemic. So I thought that was really cool.
That's amazing.
Hmm. Hmm. So the four keys to driving revenue. When I look through the three examples that we just took a look at, the first thing is network, right? Networking with your customers, partnerships that you already have, partnerships because if you have a partnership with a food vendor, for example, that food vendor can give you data about what's working out there. What other examples are there in your market? You can get the same type of information from your association, influencers and industry figures that can give you examples of what to do during this period of time to drive more revenue. Secondly, you want to test and deliver new offerings. So a virtual offering might be a restaurant owner creating a course where they teach you how to make a specific meal. It might be, for example, with the dance class, being able to teach dance online for students or young youth. Delivery would be, delivering your product. Obviously, pizza is an example of that we've always experienced, but there's also there's plenty of other examples as well. Creating digital products, so education products. So what if you created if you're a restaurant and you had a like a food diary. It could be anything. There's all these different products and services that you can create from just being a physical location business to having like a digital presence. Branding is something that's really important as a result of that. Having a good website, having a functional website where people can log on and transact with your business. Shifting your entire experience, and you can do these things in a micro testing. You don't have to change your entire business model. You can start 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 customers at a time. Communicate, having the right tools in place to communicate, from phone to live chat, text messaging, email, social media, opening up the communication channels so that customers can communicate with you. We're launching a text to email service that allows our customers to text us when they need help with something, and it goes right into our system. So it's tagged and we can follow up on it as soon as possible. Opening those communication channels up allows customers to communicate with you how their experience is, what's going well and what isn't going well. Imran, you've had experience with that, obviously, with the pubs in terms of customer feedback. Do you want to talk about how important that feedback is to a physical location, but just a business in general?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest factors I'd say, and I don't know what our attendees' businesses are, industries, but just, people that would Google us and they would see what people are saying about us, or if somebody emailed me with something that they wanted to suggest or positive or negative experience, it was up to me to try to communicate with that customer and potentially figure out what went well or what we could do better. And the review system has just become, an almighty system. I mean, it's no matter what platform you're going off of. And I know everybody on this call probably has their own preference of which platform you use, but I think, to be a good business owner, a local business owner that cares, to pay attention to detail. Yeah. It's how well can you specifically take customer needs and identify them and make them feel heard. And then hopefully they'll be more likely to come back and visit you again because of that. So it was a constant juggling act of our review platforms, email, phone calls, you name it. But I think that's what made us, it's what made us unique, is what I would say. Sorry to cut you off, but I think it's what made us unique, because we were, we had over 1,000 reviews and 4.5 stars. And I think that's because we paid attention to what customers said, no matter what it was, good, bad, or neutral.
I was wondering, do you guys think as we've moved into a very virtual world, lately, I do think it is so key to be able to get feedback and to be okay with that. I mean, feedback and criticism, criticism, it's not a bad thing, because you can take it. Some is not going to be always correct, but there's always a little morsel in there that you can take and learn from and grow from and only get better. So do you think it would be a good move for most businesses, even, depending on their size? However, like once you do a transaction, maybe follow it up with a text message or even a direct email saying, thank you, for purchasing from us. Do you have a minute to take a 4-second survey and or give us a rating online? Do you guys think that's something that folks would find valuable moving forward and just building a bigger outreach? What do you guys think on that point?
Yeah, and I think it should be automated because as a business owner, the last thing you have time for is well, I mean, it's not the last thing you have time for, but many of the business owners that I work with, where they're working a restaurant or they own a skincare manufacturing company, it's 12, 14-hour days. And there's not a lot of time you know, to get that feedback sometimes, right? And a lot of times the customer's already gone by the time they've transacted, and so being able to automate a follow-up sequence that will recognize that someone has done business with you, I think is critical, especially in today's world. I think the companies who have done well during the pandemic already understood the importance of having systems in place that would communicate with customers, collect feedback, and offer them the opportunity to make things right before it got to Google, um, for there to be the potential for a bad, a bad review. So yes, it is critically important to have a way to follow up, get that feedback, and it should be automated in my opinion. Imran or Shatrine?
Oh, I love
Go
I
ahead.
love the fact of speaking to being automated. And
Hmm.
I don't know if everyone knows that that's possible, you know what
Yeah.
I mean, or even where to begin. So I love that we're speaking to this, because
Hmm.
they can just hop online and circle, automated responses, because I think that's a brilliant move for yourself. Again, I love how you're talking about handling, communicating with the people before the review goes negative, being able to sidestep that and actually connect and see what happened, and how you can meet a need before it goes to a place you don't want it to go to. No one needs that stress. But I also love, 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 love the thought that you guys are getting the straight to text message when somebody's trying to reach out to you. I think
Hmm.
that is a huge connector as well. And I know most of us carry our phones around with us, be it a work phone or our own personal one. So if we've got that, I kind of have mine set up too. So if I have things, I can add them to my calendar and just, it does simplify it. Some people might think it's overwhelming, but I think it's such a key to being able to connect, respond, and it actually can simplify because you can make a list of what you need to do and who you need to touch base. But I'm excited to hear you guys are doing that. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Increased payment methods. So buy now, pay later. Installments is another thing that you can do. Um, and that can be separate from a buy now, pay later. So installments could be a completely separate thing that you can do if you are offering a product and you don't want to use like a consumer financing platform. You can do it on your own through your own website. Memberships is another thing. So if you wanted to offer like a discount club or a VIP club, being able to offer this expanded experience for a group of your customers that are the most loyal is something that people really appreciate and really get behind and engage with if you can create something that works really well. And in addition to that, it allows you to create additional points of ongoing revenue that you can put towards, a savings account for the business, maybe pay down, you know, debt that you've accumulated during the pandemic to reinvest in research and development of creating new products. Being able to offer these membership programs where you can create this ongoing revenue is an additional asset that you can use. And then also, these memberships can be, if it's a VIP club, your VIP club wants to see your business succeed. So if you can not only offer them something that's an elevated experience, they'll also in turn give you back the data that you need to improve and create new products and services that you can offer to the rest of your customer base.
I love that.
seems that here we go. And so with PaySuite, what we're able to do is we offer digital platforms for SMBs. So not only do we help someone figure out their fee structure in terms of their rates with their payment processing, which is important, we also recognize that companies don't fail because their payments are a 0.5% higher than it should be, right? There's way more to building a successful business. There's a lot more to building a successful business than just, your credit card processing fees or your credit card terminal. Is it the right one for your business? Obviously, we figure that out and help companies with that. But what we really are is a thought partner that can not only help from the business planning perspective, which we do with customers, but also addressing payments, addressing how are you getting appointments? What is your business development strategy? Having communication tools in place that allow you to communicate with your customers back and forth via text or email, and being able to automate that so that you can spend more time focused on your business, not having these systems disintegrated so that you're adding more time to your day trying to manage all the technology that you have, but having one system that does everything, from the text messaging to the appointments to the payments to a customer relationship tool where you can store information about your customers, not just a card on file, but what are their likes and dislikes? What are their favorite products? What is their transaction history? Where did you meet them? When is their birthday? These are all things that customers appreciate and have come to expect, because when they log into Amazon.com, Amazon is marketing to them based on what their previous history has been. And the expectation, even if we don't know it, the expectation is that we would have that experience everywhere that we spend our hard-earned dollars. So this is some of the resources that we have available. We authored a book called The Truth About Accepting Credit Cards a handful of years ago. That's a free resource on our website. We also authored another one called Where Merchant Fees Go, where we disclose 40 of the fees that payment processors charge business owners. We just did a consulting overview for a client a couple of days ago. And when we started looking through his systems, we found $1,100 just on one of his systems, $1,100 a month in just fees that aren't legitimate, that he's been getting billed for the past several years that he hasn't known about. So there's, it's to the tune of $30,000 that he spent over the past several years that he didn't know about. And so we are able to go in and audit those systems, make sure from a technology perspective they're right, but also from a cost perspective they're in the right place. And so those are just some free resources that we offer, on our website. And also here's some of the contact information for Imran and myself.
That is fantastic. I appreciate this so much, gentlemen. This has been wonderful. I might try and I'll sneak on and copy and paste and put your information in the chat as well.
Yeah.
So we can have that for folks to save their chat. Jonathan or Kim, if you guys have any questions, please let us know. I was just trying to think. So you're talking about when people if they want to reach out to you and they have an idea, they want to talk about installments, how they can, build up their virtual game and payments and different things like that. Or if they're looking at all the resources you had, we're talking about your setup, your payment schedule setup. Is there a way, like I'm just thinking as a business, let's say I've got a manager and then I've also got, I don't want to say a PR person, but somebody that's connecting to my customers. So there's 3 of us that are kind of working on that. Do you have a way in your app that I, as the business owner, could set up a login for my manager and for my, my PR person or my consumer person to connect and get that information and go out? Or is it pretty general and I need to pass them on the information from that?
Yeah, so you can give access to anyone that you like to
Okay.
give access to in your systems. You would just provision what you want them to have access to. So if it's a PR person and you want them to have access to your email list, then you can do that. You can also You can also export those things if you choose to do that, but creating a login for them separately works just as well.
That's great, because then I could actually, I saw that you guys have an app on there. So I could get the app, send that to them. They have it on their phone. So if I need them to answer something and reply and go there, they can access it quickly and
Yes.
go from, oh, that's so great.
Yes.
I
And
love
when it comes to the like the system itself, there's a lot of communication tools that work with the customer as well. Like if you wanted to, send documents back and forth with a customer, they can log into like what is considered to be a client portal. That's a secure client portal where you can just communicate back and forth with them instead of having things inside of an email and it getting lost. You can just have, a dashboard where you and the customer can only share information between the two of you.
That's amazing. Imran, do you have any other thoughts, things you want to share?
Oh, the last thing I was going to add is just, I think one thing Keith didn't know was that last client he spoke of that was losing a, $1,000 plus a month in mysterious fees. That wasn't even our client. Like, I mean, we couldn't take that client in our company. I think what Keith does with his value system is just more, I think to me, that's more important than a lot of the technical aspects of payments, which is, he was just helping this person out and they paid Keith just to be like, hey, can you help us find out what we're paying and explain what's happening with our statements? And so that's another thing that I think is important. As a former 5 years brew pub operations director, I was just, I would have loved to have somebody come in and be like, hey, what fees are you paying for your transactions? And if you're doing $100,000 a month at this location and 50 and 75 at these other locations, altogether, those are this much credit card fees. What could that be if you were using a different processor or a different system? And how can you increase customer revenues? And so Keith's just really, really good at that, high level proficient. And it's not, we're just trying to find the best fit for people. So I think that's another thing that we try to take pride in doing, is just the consulting aspect, is that we want small businesses and local businesses to succeed, because Keith is one, he's a small business owner, local business owner, and so was I, and we've been in those shoes. And so we just really want these small or medium owned businesses to flourish in this market. And I think that's our main goal at this company. So that's the only thing I wanted to add.
Yeah, you're spot on, Imran. Thank you for highlighting that. I don't talk about that as much, but there's a lot of providers in the space. And one of the things I hated about working for Heartland Payment Systems, not they're a fantastic company, but when you work for a company, you work there to sell their stuff. And what I didn't appreciate when I met with companies is that I didn't want to sell them on Heartland stuff. I wanted to figure out like whether they were using Square or PayPal or Venmo or some other processor. I wanted to make sure that they were getting what they qualified to get, which is, I believe, reasonable cost, great technology, and great support. And if they're getting that somewhere else, I don't like I'm not there to disrupt that. Right? I'm not there to win at all costs. And so when people ask often, it's like, "Oh, well, what's the difference between using you guys or Square or Stripe or PayPal or whatnot?" It's like that's not really the conversation. The conversation is where are you trying to get to? And do you have what you need in place to get there? And if you do, then we want to make sure that we don't disrupt that. Right? It's not about us versus someone else. It's about what are your goals and where are you trying to accomplish and can we help you get there? And if we can help you get there, we will. And oftentimes without you having to change any of your technology if it's the right technology.
Yeah.
Um,
There's
so
a
yeah,
question for you, Keith, in the chat
sure. Yeah.
that you can, I don't know if you can see that, but it's a really good question from Jonathan.
Yeah. Yeah. Is PaySuite accessible via a phone for transactions? Example, setting up a shop at a farmer's market and using a phone for POS. Yes, Jonathan, we actually can do that, and we can do that on whether you're using a Apple phone or an Android, or we have plenty of options when it comes to being able to do that. on a cell phone and other methods as well.
Have you guys found that the option for the POS has really grown during this? I mean, it has been on the upswing. I feel like it's been on the upswing in the last 10 years. You know what I mean? Like people are really realizing, oh, this is a great form of payment. But have you guys seen a huge increase in folks needing to access this? And just, I feel like folks have really started to hone the best way of accepting these payments. Do you guys feel that too?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that point of sale has not only it's become critical. I think at times it has been considered like a necessary evil. Well, where now businesses and business owners that are really successful are starting to see it as the hub, like the brain and the heart of their business. That is the most important asset, one of the most important assets that they have outside of their employees. And point of sale companies during the pandemic have had to scramble to meet the needs of customers like never before. So I would say also that point of sale companies recognize that the shift in the business owner's mindset towards point of sale, and they've had to double down on all their efforts in terms of making sure that the experience is as simple and as supportive as it possibly can be.
That's great.
Yeah.
What an exciting time we live in, guys. These huge pivots. I just appreciate you both coming and explaining options for folks and letting them know that it isn't just one and done, or you have to accept where you're at. There's possibility. And there's folks that care, that actually want to come in and say, hey, how can we support your business? What could we do to make it better? What could we do to make it simpler for you? And I feel like you guys are a perfect example of that. I appreciate your time. And I hope for anyone watching that you will be able to reach out to Keith or Imran and just ask them if you've got a question. They are so great to talk to. They will set up a time to meet with you, or if you want to connect them with somebody else. You know, we are about making businesses succeed. And we're about being there to help one another. And we're so thankful for the time that you took to listen in. And I'm so thankful to you, gentlemen. We appreciate everything that you're doing in this world too, making it a better place and getting folks their money safely. I do see, thank you, Kim. And
Thanks,
thanks,
Kim.
Jonathan.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks,
Jonathan.
Shatrine.
Yes, I hope you
Everything.
all have a wonderful rest of your day. And we will share this recording for folks to watch later.
Awesome.
All right.
All right.
Take care,
Thank you.
everyone.
Yep.